all these decisions were very intentional on the part of an artist like Prince. So what does it suggest? That over and over and over again, Prince decided to visualize the themes of sex, lust, and love in his music through the beings of non-Black, white, or racially ambiguous women. Hey guys, it's Julesy, and we are here to discuss Prince. Now, let me tell you before we get into it exactly, I am re-recording this video because the first time I recorded it, I was giving a good look. But the whole video was blurry and unusable. Then I had an eye infection in my left eye, then an eye infection in my right eye. Then I got some really bad news and my eyes were just all puffy because we've been sad. We've been very sad. So it's kind of a struggle to be sitting here right now, but we are here with you. And we're going to be talking about the colorism of Prince. Yes, the icon, the musician, the artist, Prince. And we are continuing this conversation because I've been doing a few videos now on the music industry, kind of sort of like music history, and I did the video on colorism and R&B, and I wanted to look at a more specific role of individual players in the music industry. And Prince is one of the most influential entertainers, both as a musician, as a producer, and as a curator of the visual element of music. This is not meant to defame Prince, but these discussions should be held and muled over often as we push for a much needed change in our respective communities. Now, we live as a whole in an anti-Black society where all of us have absorbed or internalized some form of anti-Blackness. This is a call out to myself included. And oftentimes we see some frame of this anti-Blackness expressed in colorism. And so it's important for us to take a look at how colorism can work its way into the politics of our daily life and giving us more perspective how insipid this system of oppression is. Now, whether you are new here or returning subscriber, you know the reason for the season is always a big shout out to Audible for allowing this video to be possible. If I had it my way, it'd be deuces. We'd be peace of the Middle East, love of the Midwest. We'd be out, yeah, we'd be gone. We would be ghosts, actually. But Audible makes it possible not only for me to sit down and do these videos, but also for me to collaborate with great minds. And this video was co-produced with Henny on the talk, Henny on the gram, Henny on the Twitter. You know, this is what, third, fourth collab going around. We really doing it well. We actually had a whole discussion on my Patreon about musicians with complicated politics and how we as consumers should engage with said musicians. But Henny, I really appreciate the opportunity to work with them. And so shout out to Audible for making that possible. And of course, you know, as a runner of a book club, that is very exhausting. Babe, don't shut the book club down. But hey, come on over and join in the meantime while it's still running. And we are, in the coming month of July, reading All Boys Aren't Blue by George M. Johnson. It is available on Audible. That would actually be my recommendation for today. Or you can, the last book I listened to was With the Fire on High, but I was actually going to recommend Bad Fat Black Girl, Trot Feminism by Cecily Bowen. Absolutely love listening to that on Audible. 10 out of 10. Highly recommend. So if you are new to Audible, audible.com/Julesy or text Julesy 500 and get your first month free. Audible has a bunch of, obviously, I just named 3 whole audiobooks. Any of the books that we have read on the general track in the SBG book club are almost always on Audible, and it makes reading so much more accessible, so much easier. But they also have a great slew of podcasts, of original series, of scripted series, so many different audio treats for you to find on the Audible platform. So again, audible.com/Julesy or text Julesy 500 and get your first month for the free, okay? Thank you to Audible and thank you to Henny for allowing me to make this video possible. So now let's get into it. Now, first, we have to do a little bit of background on Prince, also known as Prince Rogers Nelson, who was born in Minneapolis, Minnesota in 1958, June 7th to be exact. He's definitely a Gemini. While some may think that Prince is biracial, he was actually born to two light-skinned African-American parents, Mattie Dell Shaw Baker and John L. Nelson. It can actually be suggested that Prince's upbringing laid the foundation for the colorism that was expressed in his adult life. At the time, Minneapolis, Minnesota was not yet the black bastion during Prince's childhood. You could almost say that the community was building. The migration was happening at the time of Prince's childhood for the very black city we know it to be now. Prince had to scavenge for the latest releases of his black idols at the local record store. The radio stations in his area were largely playing white musicians, and at that time, the rock scene had absolutely been gentrified and commodified to uphold whiteness. Now, according to Jolly Bean Johnson and the family band member from BBC's Prince, A Purple Rain documentary, Prince was immersed in all this rock and different things that your normal black kid just ain't around. While black people in Minnesota, we were around it all the time. We ain't have no choice. And that kind of speaks to the era in which Prince grew up. So we might have one frame of mind of like modern day Minneapolis and what it means to be from that city. And he should have been well aware and he should have known. But Prince in the early 60s and growing up in that era was actually living in a different time than what we know now today. The one thing that you absolutely have to say about Prince when you look at the legacy of his music, and if you watch any of his documentaries, a major theme that runs across all of them is that this is a person who made very conscious decisions about the way not only his music was produced, but the way it was promoted, the way it was marketed, the way it was expressed visually. He was very hands-on. And if Prince had any sort of desire, he made sure that that desire was met, whether it was $100 million deal with a record label, owning the rights to his music and the masters, whether it was producing a movie and being the star of said movie. If Prince wanted it, Prince made sure it happened. And you could even sort of argue that Prince, at some point in his career, began laying a similar template to Sly and the Family Stone as he sought to bridge the gap and be a crossover in the major pop music scene for acts. And part of that template was using white and ambiguous women for crossover appeal. And because of that, there was a push to be progressive through collaboration that always excluded identifiably black women who helped to create the rock music scene.
I think he was after putting together a group that could make the crossover in America between black and white music. And I did ask him at one point, why did you hire me? And he said, you got that look. You're white, you're blonde, you have blue eyes, and you can play funky keyboards.
Now, over Prince's career, he collaborated and co-signed roughly 50 talents who were women. And of those 50 women, 15 identified as black. And of those 15, 5 were brown or dark skinned. Now, the women Prince employed were mostly white and non-black, and he had a particular eye towards the exoticized, ambiguous, multiracial, biracial woman. Most notable of these are Sheila E., Apollonia, Jill Jones, Susanna Malvone, and Mate Garcia. Then he had a long engagement to Susanna and would later go on to marry Mate Garcia through some very suspect circumstances. Now, on a more contemporary side, and per my last video that not enough of you watched, Prince also endorsed the baby's third baby mom, Danny Lay. Yellow bone is what you want herself.
Yellow boneless body, no, body.
Now, Danny was 18 years old and Prince was 54 years old at the time. And he flew her entire family out to Paisley Park to then give her full creative control and a budget to produce the music video for his song, Breakfast Can Wait. And Danny does star in the video.
I never directed anything before. I've only been on camera. Basically, I got an email from Nandy and Maya McLean. They contacted me and said that Prince wants me to submit a video, a choreography video. He loved the submission, and then from there, he asked me to write a treatment for the video, direct the video, and just basically make the video happen.
What earned her that sort of opportunity? What made her stick out above the rest? One only has to wonder. In a 2017 issue of the Journal of African American Studies, Dr. Donatrice C. Allison wrote an article titled For Color Girls Who Loved Prince Rogers Nelson, in which she recounts her own early memories of Prince. By the time I was 14, I fell utterly and completely in love with him as I watched him sing the Apollonia, "Do you want or do you want me? 'Cause I want you." Remember that look on her face, the tears in her eyes. I had that same look, the same tears. He was singing to me. The only difference, I was a little brown girl with big lips, a wide nose, and kinky hair, and when it wasn't straightened by a hot comb. And I think that acknowledges that there was a visual representation in which monoracial black women were othered. Because time after time again, the women featured in Prince's music videos all had a similar, ambiguous, biracial aesthetic. The majority of his proteges and band formations excluded non-ambiguous black women. There was Vanity Six, led by Denise Katrina Matthews, who was light-skinned and biracial. You can also say a lot of, whether it was Vanity Six or a combination of a few of the black women proteges of Prince, but in School Days and the light-skinned squad that's led by Tisha Campbell definitely were inspired by Prince's protege. There's acknowledgement to these women being the prototype for the women that Prince endorses within the film. And further into his career, he would also discover other notable acts like Bria Valente and Martika. It's not to say that he never worked with any brown-skinned or dark-skinned black women, but when you think of Prince and the women proteges he endorsed, there's a very specific prototype that comes to mind, because Tamar stands alone as Prince's one black woman protege on the roster. And I would love to see a show of hands for how many people know who that is. And we're not talking about Tamar Braxton. Okay. I'm looking in the crowd. Please let me know. Let me know in the comments down below. Also remember, commenting helps. Comment and share. Thank you. Now, I want to circle back to Prince's and Matei's very suspect relationship, because the age gap and the power dynamic that was at play in their relationship skews towards predatory. Now, would Matei herself ever acknowledge that? Probably not. But she was introduced to Prince through a dance video from her parents when she was 16 and he was 32. In order to go on tour with Prince, Garcia's own father signed over guardianship to Prince, and she spent the next 2 years in his legal care before they publicly announced their relationship when she was 19 years old. They would then go on to have a child who I believe had a severe case of Pfeiffer syndrome, and I don't know if that child died naturally or what happened, but Prince then, in an Oprah interview, lied about the circumstances of that child's birth and how the child was doing. But Prince controlled the narrative of them discussing their child. Not only age impacts that power dynamic, but also power, access, and wealth. Exploitative, predatory, abusive. In his hit song with Sheena Easton, "You Got the Look," the subplot is Prince's onstage drama as Prince is infatuated with this white woman as his black choreographer, Cat Glover, struggles to hold his attention and eventually drags him away from Sheena as he kicks and screams out to try and get her back. And then when we shift to the even more urban sound with the new power generation, the colorism still abounds. It's still white, biracial, racially ambiguous women being featured in the music videos. We get elaborate videos for Cream and Get Off that feature virtually only white women and a seemingly tokenized black woman who's pushed into the shadow. We hear evocative euphemisms for sex and lust by Prince and his fellow black musicians in the new power generation. But again, what is visualized is his admiration for thin, white dancer bodies. Same album cycle, Prince introduces two white paramours, Diamond and Pearl, from whom he later sings the heart-wrenching ballad, which is probably one of his most commercially popular songs. Now, while the song does feature Rosalie Gaines, we see Matei performing ballet, while white women are featured as the symbols of desire. And it showcases not only that white women and non-black women are continually sexualized for visuals, Prince shows that even his adoration and love belongs to them as well. And then from there on, most of his albums with the new power generation visualize his love for Matei and her beauty. Even as we highlight all these points, I'm sure people might want to, excuse it or push it off to someone else. I'm absolutely not suggesting that you can't listen to Prince. that you as a fan of Prince are wrong, or that you need to discard of all his albums and never play him again. But I think, again, as I said at the beginning, it is important to have these conversations, to acknowledge what we are all seeing, to give language to what we're seeing, and to be able to also learn and grow from past mistakes of others. You know, Prince obviously made very conscious decisions about his music. All these decisions were very intentional on the part of an artist like Prince. So what does it suggest? That over and over and over again, Prince decided to visualize the themes of sex, lust, and love in his music through the beings of non-Black, white, or racially ambiguous women. Yes, Prince is a complicated artist, and this absolutely does not take away from his legacy as a musician. Y'all can still rock out to Purple Rain or Love Sexy or whatever album you prefer, but Prince also, within the way he curated his own music and the visuals and the marketing, created a template for other musicians to follow. And I do think he had an oversized influence on the way colorism became so visible within the visual media of urban music. I know personally, anecdotally, so many men who are big fans of Prince, you know, having lived through the 90s as a teenager, in the early 2000s in my 20s, and men who like still stylize themselves as, you know, the way Prince dressed. I mean, honestly, anytime I saw a man was such a big Prince fan that they also ingested some of his like fashion sense or his style. Definitely men who like straighten their hair to get it to wear it like Prince. Just sort of that sort of air or energy. I don't think anybody can dress like Prince except for Prince. But you know what I mean when other people took on different facets of his fashion sense, of his style. It was always a clear sign that they were into a very specific type of woman. It was always a very clear sign that she needed to be racially ambiguous, exotic looking, silky hair textured, narrow features, and very slim. Prince absolutely created a theme that other Black musicians and even some Black men at large follow when singing or thinking about sex, love, and pleasure. And Prince's most high-profile flings, proteges, and cosigns continually reinforce the notion that light-skinned and ambiguous women are to be admired as paramours and muses for Black musicians. And part of why I was able to travel so far was because of the success that Prince had that some may want to attribute to this formula. Whether they attribute it to this is the reason for its success, or they attribute it as a sign of success, and it therefore becomes an aesthetic of success. This success, whichever way you attribute it to, encourage other artists, executives, and influential figures in the music industry to cash in on colorism. In his later years, Prince absolutely showed love and respect and co-signed and collaborated with Janelle Monáe and Lizzo. But the work he put in for decades of his career was to highlight ambiguous and non-Black women as the ultimate romantic ideal. And that centering of this visual within his music will always ring much louder than any efforts he supposedly made to leveling that playing field. Colorism was so loud, even his endorsement of other dark-skinned Black women doesn't dissipate, doesn't wash that away. We can both acknowledge it, understand the role it had, even after the height of Prince's career. I would love to hear your thoughts on Prince and Prince's colorism. Were you aware of this before this video? At what point did you become aware of it? If you grew up in the era of Prince, especially as a Black woman, you know, what memories do you have of Prince and his music videos? And I personally definitely remember it kind of being a tongue-in-cheek moment. I mean, our school days kind of make a parody of the way Prince took, you know, maybe not so talented, racially ambiguous women and attempted to make them into music stars. Yeah, it was definitely kind of a tongue-in-cheek noted thing during that era, though maybe we didn't have as robust of language as we have today. So thank you for tuning in. I can't wait to hear your comments and thoughts down below. Definitely, if you enjoyed this video, subscribe and share. Best way that you can help me as a content creator. I'll see you on the other side. Deuces!